As a reward for saving his daughter, the millionaire made the cleaner the hotel manager. But when he came back to the hotel a few weeks later, he was stunned. Amanda adjusted her cleaning cart, her hands brushing over the faded but sturdy handles as she surveyed the grand lobby of the Carter Regency Hotel in downtown Chicago. The air buzzed with energy, guests checking out, luggage rolling across the polished marble floors, and the soft hum of the front desk phones blending into the background. She had been working since dawn, ensuring the opulent space looked perfect for its demanding clientele. The grandeur of the hotel was a stark contrast to Amanda's modest life. She often marveled at the shimmering chandeliers and towering floral arrangements, but reminded herself not to linger. The Carter Regency was a place of luxury, and she was part of the invisible workforce that kept it pristine. Her routine was interrupted by the squeak of her cart's wheels as she maneuvered it closer to the entrance. Amanda wiped her brow with the back of her hand, adjusting her uniform as she prepared to tackle the brass railings near the elevators. These small tasks were her responsibility, and though they were far from glamorous, she approached them with care. She often thought about her grandmother's words, "Dignity isn't in the job you do, but in how you do it." Lost in thought, Amanda nearly missed the sudden cry that shattered the usual rhythm of the lobby. The sound was high-pitched, desperate, and immediately set her on edge. Dropping her rag, she turned toward the noise. A small crowd was gathering near the elevators, and Amanda's pulse quickened. "It's my daughter!" A woman's frantic voice rang out. "She's trapped!" Amanda pushed through the onlookers, her heart racing. When she reached the elevator, she saw the problem. The doors were partially open, revealing an elevator stuck between floors. Inside, a little girl clung to the railing, her face streaked with tears as she screamed for her mother. For a moment, Amanda froze, her mind racing. She could hear the crowd murmuring, their panic mounting as they speculated on what could go wrong. But then, as if on autopilot, Amanda took charge. "Everyone, please step back," she said, her voice firm. She glanced at the woman, who was sobbing uncontrollably. "Do you have the elevator's manual?" The woman fumbled in her purse. Pulling out a small booklet with trembling hands, Amanda grabbed it and flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning for the emergency release instructions. The crowd around her seemed frozen, but Amanda's focus was sharp. The little girl's cries echoed in her ears, and she knew time was running out. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Amanda called out, kneeling beside the elevator doors. Madison," the girl stammered, clutching the railing tighter. "Madison, I'm Amanda," she said, her tone calm and reassuring. "I'm going to get you out of there, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Madison nodded, her sobs quieting slightly. Amanda quickly located the emergency release lever at the base of the elevator shaft. She signaled to a nearby security guard. "I need your help. We're going to pry this open slowly. Be careful." Together, Amanda and the guard worked to open the doors wider. The tension in the air was palpable, but Amanda continued to reassure Madison. "You're doing great, Madison. Just a little longer." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the doors opened enough for Amanda to reach inside. She extended her hand toward Madison. "Take my hand. You're safe now." Madison hesitated, her tiny fingers trembling. But Amanda's steady gaze gave her courage. With a quick motion, Amanda pulled the girl to safety, just as the crowd erupted in applause. Madison threw herself into her mother's arms, and the woman wept with relief. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "You saved her life," before Amanda could respond. A deep voice interrupted. "What's going on here?" Amanda turned to see a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit making his way through the crowd. His sharp features were set in a mix of concern and authority. He scanned the scene, his eyes landing on Madison. "Madison, are you okay?" "Daddy," Madison cried. Running to him, the man knelt, gathering her into his arms. His demeanor softened as he held her close. "You scared me," he murmured, then looked up at Amanda, his piercing blue eyes locked on hers. "You're the one who saved her." Amanda nodded, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "I just did what anyone would do." "Not everyone," he replied, standing to his full height. "You acted when no one else did." He extended his hand. "James Carter." Amanda hesitated before shaking it. "Amanda Reyes." James studied her for a moment. his gaze lingering as if committing her face to memory. "I owe you more than I can express if there's anything I can do," before Amanda could reply. The hotel manager appeared, fawning over James. "Mr. Carter, I'm so sorry for this incident. We'll ensure the elevator is thoroughly inspected." James waved him off, his attention still on Amanda. "This young woman deserves recognition. She didn't just save my daughter. She showed extraordinary courage." Amanda flushed under the praise. "Thank you, sir. I'm just glad Madison is safe." As the crowd dispersed, Amanda returned to her cleaning cart, her hands trembling slightly. The adrenaline was beginning to wear off, leaving her with a strange mix of pride and disbelief. That evening, as she clocked out, her supervisor stopped her. "Amanda, you've been requested to meet with Mr. Carter tomorrow morning. He has something important to discuss." Amanda's heart skipped a beat as she walked home, the city lights casting long shadows on the pavement. She couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to take an unexpected turn. Amanda arrived at the Carter Regency Hotel the next morning, with a mix of nerves and curiosity swirling inside her. She had barely slept, replaying the events of the previous day over and over in her mind. Saving Madison had been instinctive, but the attention that followed was unlike anything she had experienced before. Walking into the bustling lobby, Amanda noticed her co-workers stealing glances at her. Whispers trailed her as she wheeled her cleaning cart toward the staff elevator. "Great," she thought. "I'm already the talk of the day." "Amanda," a voice called. She turned to see her supervisor, a middle-aged man with a no-nonsense demeanor, waving her over. "Leave your cart for now, mister. Carter is waiting for you in the executive office." Her stomach flipped. "Me? Why?" "You'll find out soon enough," he replied, his tone unusually kind. "Just head up there." Amanda smoothed her uniform, checked her reflection in a nearby mirror, and took the staff elevator to the top floor. Her hands were clammy as she approached the office door. She took a deep breath before knocking. "Come in," said a deep voice from inside. She opened the door to find James Carter seated behind a sleek mahogany desk. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, but his expression was warm, almost fatherly. Madison sat on a small couch by the window, drawing in a notebook. "Ah, Amanda," James said, standing and gesturing for her to sit. "Please, have a seat." Amanda perched on the edge of the chair, feeling out of place in the opulent office. The leather upholstery, floor-to-ceiling windows, and tasteful artwork reminded her just how far removed her life was from this world. "I wanted to personally thank you again for what you did yesterday," James began. "Saving my daughter was no small feat. You showed bravery and quick thinking under pressure, qualities I deeply respect." Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "I was just doing what I thought was right, sir. I'm glad Madison is okay." James leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "What's your role here at the hotel?" "I'm part of the cleaning staff," she replied, her voice steady. "And how long have you been with us?" 3 years, Amanda said, feeling a bit self-conscious. "It's been a good job while I work on my degree at night." James raised an eyebrow. "A degree? In what field?" "Business administration," she said, her tone softening. "I've always wanted to run something of my own someday. Maybe a small cafe or a community center." James nodded thoughtfully, as if filing away the information. "Amanda, your actions yesterday proved to me that you're capable of much more than cleaning. You have initiative, composure, and the ability to act decisively in difficult situations. These are rare qualities." Amanda blinked, unsure of where this was going. "I've decided to promote you," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Effective immediately. You're the new assistant manager of the hotel." The words hung in the air. Amanda's mind raced, trying to process what she'd just heard. "Assistant manager," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," James confirmed. "You'll report to the general manager. And your responsibilities will include overseeing daily operations, coordinating with department heads, and ensuring our guests receive the best possible experience." Amanda stared at him, struggling to find the right words. "Sir, I don't think I'm qualified for that position. I've never done anything like this before." James smiled. "None of us are born qualified, Amanda. We learn as we go, and I have no doubt you'll rise to the challenge. I'll personally see to it that you get the training and support you need." She opened her mouth to protest, but hesitated. This was an opportunity she had never dreamed of, and turning it down felt like a mistake. "Thank you," she finally said, her voice steady. "I'll do my best." "I know you will," James replied, standing and extending his hand. Amanda shook it, still feeling like she was in a dream. As she left the office, her thoughts were a whirlwind of excitement, fear, and disbelief. The elevator ride down felt endless, her reflection in the mirrored walls showing a mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. When she stepped back into the lobby, the news had already spread. Some coworkers congratulated her warmly, while others merely looked on with thinly veiled jealousy. "Assistant manager, huh?" a voice sneered. Amanda turned to see Melissa, the current manager, standing with her arms crossed. Her perfectly styled blonde hair and tailored suit radiated authority and disdain. "Congratulations," Melissa said, though her tone made it clear she didn't mean it. "Let's hope you're ready for the responsibility." "Thanks," Amanda replied, refusing to rise to the bait. As Melissa walked away, Amanda felt a wave of doubt creep in. Could she really handle this new role? Or had she just stepped into a world where she didn't belong? That evening, as Amanda walked home under the glow of the city lights, she promised herself one thing. She wouldn't let this opportunity go to waste. The next morning, Amanda stood in front of the mirror in her small, one-bedroom apartment, smoothing the wrinkles out of her freshly ironed blouse. Gone was the familiar cleaning uniform. In its place was a professional outfit she had borrowed from her neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, who lived down the hall. Amanda adjusted the collar nervously, trying to suppress the gnawing feeling of imposter syndrome creeping into her thoughts. She glanced at her grandmother's picture on the wall. "I hope I don't mess this up," she muttered, grabbing her bag and heading out the door at the Carter Regency Hotel. Amanda arrived 15 minutes early, eager to make a good impression. The lobby buzzed with its usual morning activity, but today, it felt different. Eyes followed her as she walked past the front desk, her new role already the topic of every whispered conversation. Amanda, the familiar voice of Brian. One of her former co-workers from the cleaning staff called out. He jogged over, giving her an encouraging smile. "Hey, congrats on the promotion, you deserve it." "Thanks, Brian," Amanda said, her nerves easing slightly at his kindness. "I'm still getting used to the idea. Don't let anyone get to you," he added with a wink. "You've got this." Feeling bolstered, Amanda made her way to the manager's office, where Melissa was waiting with a clipboard in hand. Her smile was as sharp as the heels she clicked against the polished floor. "Morning, Amanda," Melissa said, her tone saccharine. "I thought I'd give you a quick rundown of your duties. You know, to help you transition." "Thanks, I appreciate it," Amanda replied, forcing a polite smile. Melissa walked Amanda through the daily responsibilities of an assistant manager, highlighting every detail with a tone that carried an undercurrent of condescension. "Of course, if you're overwhelmed at any point, feel free to let me know. It's a big leap from cleaning floors to managing operations," Melissa said with a pointed look. Amanda bit back a sharp reply, reminding herself to stay professional. "I'll let you know if I need help." By the end of the morning, Amanda felt like her head was spinning, from guest satisfaction surveys to coordinating with the kitchen staff. There was more to the job than she had anticipated, but instead of feeling discouraged, Amanda felt determined. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to let Melissa or anyone else intimidate her. Her first real test came that afternoon during a meeting with the kitchen team. The hotel was preparing for a VIP dinner that evening, and tensions were high. The head chef, a fiery man named Marco, paced the room as he rattled off a list of demands. "We need extra staff on the floor, and the seating arrangement has to be adjusted," Marco said, waving a printed menu in the air. "And for heaven's sake, someone tell housekeeping to stop sending me cheap linens for the table settings." Amanda cleared her throat. "I'll make sure the linens are replaced immediately, Chef Marco. As for the extra staff, I'll coordinate with the front desk to reassign some team members." Marco raised an eyebrow, as if sizing her up. "Fine," he said after a moment, "but don't screw this up. If this dinner isn't perfect, it's my head on the line." "Understood," Amanda replied, keeping her voice steady. By the time the dinner began, Amanda had handled everything from last-minute seating adjustments to soothing a disgruntled guest whose reservation had been misplaced. Standing in the corner of the ballroom, she watched as the evening unfolded smoothly, a small sense of pride bubbling up within her. "Not bad for your first big day," James Carter said, appearing beside her with a glass of sparkling water in hand. Amanda turned, startled. "Mr. Carter, I didn't see you there." "James," he corrected with a smile. "You're doing well, Amanda. The staff seems to respect you already." "I still have a lot to learn," she admitted, glancing around the room. "But thank you. That means a lot coming from you." Before James could respond, Melissa approached, her smile as polished as ever. "Everything's running smoothly, isn't it?" she said, her eyes flicking to Amanda. "Looks like the team is doing their job." "Yes, they are," James said, his tone firm. Thanks to Amanda's coordination. Melissa's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. "Of course. I'll leave you two to it." As Melissa walked away, Amanda felt a pang of unease. It was clear Melissa wasn't going to make her transition easy, but Amanda resolved not to let her doubts show. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Amanda threw herself into her work, learning on the go and gradually earning the trust of the staff. While some were supportive, others, like Melissa, remained skeptical or outright dismissive. Each challenge was a reminder of how far Amanda had come, and how much further she had to go. Late one evening, as Amanda prepared to leave for the day, she noticed a handwritten note tucked under her desk blotter. She unfolded it, her brow furrowing as she read the words, "Watch your back." Her heart pounded, but she took a deep breath, crumpling the note in her hand. She wasn't going to let fear, or whoever had written it, distract her. Amanda was determined to prove that she belonged in this role. No matter what obstacles lay ahead, Amanda arrived at the Carter Regency early, determined to face whatever challenges the day would throw her way. The cryptic note she had found the previous evening still lingered in her mind, but she refused to let it shake her resolve. Her morning started as usual, reviewing schedules, coordinating with department heads, and preparing for a high-profile event scheduled for that evening, a charity gala with some of Chicago's elite in attendance. The event was Melissa's project, but as assistant manager, Amanda had been tasked with assisting in the final preparations. The tension between them was palpable, especially when Melissa handed Amanda a clipboard loaded with tasks. "These are last-minute details," Melissa said with a tight smile. "I trust you can handle them. Don't mess up. The Carter family will be watching tonight." Amanda took the clipboard without a word. Biting her tongue, Melissa's tone was condescending, but Amanda reminded herself that action spoke louder than words. She dove into the tasks, coordinating deliveries, double-checking seating arrangements, and addressing the smallest details to ensure the gala would be flawless by early afternoon. The ballroom was a whirlwind of activity. Staff members rushed to and fro, setting up tables adorned with crystal glassware and elegant floral arrangements. The soft hum of a string quartet warming up added to the bustling atmosphere. Amanda supervised the preparations with a sharp eye, stepping in to resolve minor issues before they escalated. However, as the event neared, Amanda began to sense that something was off. The kitchen was unusually quiet, and when she went to check, she found the staff in a state of confusion. Chef Marco, normally in control, was pacing furiously. "What's going on?" Amanda asked, stepping into the kitchen. "We're missing key ingredients for tonight's main course," Marco said, his voice tight with frustration. "The order was supposed to arrive this morning, but it's nowhere to be found." Amanda frowned. She had personally confirmed the delivery schedule the day before. "Let me check with the supplier," she said. Pulling out her phone, after several frantic calls, Amanda discovered that the order had been mysteriously canceled. Her stomach sank. It was no coincidence. Someone had tampered with the preparations, and she had a good idea of who was behind it. But there was no time to dwell on it now. "Okay," Amanda said, taking a deep breath. "We'll improvise, Marco. What can we make with the ingredients we have?" Marco hesitated, clearly irritated. "We could do a variation of the dish, but it won't be what's on the menu." "Then let's make it work," Amanda said firmly. "I'll handle the guests if anyone complains." Marco studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Fine, but this is on you." Amanda threw herself into the chaos, organizing the kitchen staff and ensuring the improvised dish was prepared flawlessly. By the time the event began, the kitchen was back on track, and Amanda was on the ballroom floor, directing staff and greeting guests as they arrived. The gala was in full swing when Melissa approached Amanda with a glass of champagne in hand, her smile as sharp as ever. "I heard there were some "Hiccups in the kitchen," she said, her tone dripping with faux concern. "Everything okay?" Amanda met her gaze evenly. "Yes, everything's under control." "Good," Melissa said, clearly disappointed. She leaned in closer. "I told you this job was a lot of pressure. Be careful, Amanda. One mistake could cost you." Amanda clenched her jaw, but refused to rise to the bait. Instead, she turned her attention back to the event, ensuring the guests were enjoying themselves as the evening progressed. She kept a close eye on the kitchen and the dining floor, ready to address any issues that might arise. When the main course was served, Amanda held her breath. The improvised dish was a gamble, but as the plates were set before the guests, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Several diners even complimented the staff on the creativity of the menu. James Carter, who had been observing the event from the sidelines, approached Amanda near the end of the night. "I heard about the situation in the kitchen," he said, his tone serious. "You handled it well." "Thank you," Amanda replied, a mixture of relief and pride washing over her. "It wasn't ideal, but we managed," James nodded, his expression softening. "It's not just about managing the ideal scenarios, it's how you handle the unexpected that shows true leadership." "Keep it up," Amanda smiled, his words reinforcing her determination to succeed as the event wound down and guests began to leave. Amanda took a moment to breathe, surveying the room with a sense of accomplishment. The gala had been a success, despite the challenges, and she had proven herself capable under pressure, but her moment of triumph was short-lived. As she returned to the office to gather her things, she found another note waiting for her on her desk. This one was typed, the words cold and impersonal. "This isn't over." Amanda stared at the note, her chest tightening. She wasn't sure who was behind the sabotage or the threats, but one thing was clear: someone was determined to see her fail. Clutching the note in her hand, she made a silent vow to herself. "I won't let them win." Amanda woke up the next morning with a lingering sense of unease. The anonymous notes and the sabotage at the gala had left her more determined than ever, but also wary. She had spent years working quietly, avoiding conflict and keeping her head down. Now she found herself thrust into a position of visibility, and, evidently, rivalry. The early shift at the Carter Regency was bustling as always. Amanda greeted staff with a polite nod, her focus set on the day ahead. The night's challenges were behind her, but she knew the pressure wouldn't let up. "Ms. Reyes," a cheerful voice called out. Amanda turned to see Madison, James Carter's daughter, skipping toward her in the lobby. Her blonde curls bounced with every step, and her wide smile was infectious. "Good morning, Madison," Amanda said, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. "What are you doing here so early?" "Daddy's in a meeting and he said I could say hi," Madison exclaimed. She held out a small drawing. "This is for you." Amanda took the paper and smiled. It was a colorful depiction of the two of them standing next to the elevator. "Is this us?" Madison nodded enthusiastically. "You're my hero." Amanda's heart melted at the child's words. "Thank you, Madison. I'll treasure this," from across the lobby. James appeared, his tall frame and commanding presence cutting through the morning chaos. He approached with a warm smile, nodding at Amanda. "Madison, why don't you go sit with Miss Veronica at the front desk while I talk to Amanda?" James said, gently guiding his daughter toward the receptionist. Once Madison was out of earshot, James turned back to Amanda. "I wanted to thank you again for your work last night. The gala was a success, and that's largely thanks to your quick thinking." "Thank you," Amanda replied, though her mind flickered back to the stress of the evening. "It wasn't easy, but I'm glad everything worked out." James studied her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "You're doing well, Amanda. Better than I think even you realize. But I want to make sure you're not feeling overwhelmed." "I won't lie," Amanda admitted. "It's been a big adjustment, and there have been challenges." James raised an eyebrow. "Challenges?" Amanda hesitated. The notes, the sabotage. She didn't want to sound like she was complaining, but she also knew she couldn't handle everything alone. "I think someone doesn't want me here," she said carefully. "There have been a few incidents, nothing I can't handle, but it's clear not everyone is happy about my promotion." James's jaw tightened. "If anyone is making your life difficult, I want to know. This hotel thrives on teamwork and respect, and I won't tolerate anything less." "I appreciate that," Amanda said, her confidence bolstered by his support. "I'll let you know if it escalates." Their conversation was interrupted by Melissa, who approached with her signature polished smile. "Good morning, Mr. Carter, Amanda," she said, her tone saccharine. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," James said, his demeanor cooling slightly. "We were just discussing how well the gala went last night." "Ah, yes," Melissa replied, her eyes narrowing slightly as she looked at Amanda. "Amanda handled everything admirably, though I imagine it was a bit overwhelming for her first major event." Amanda forced a neutral smile. "It was a team effort." James glanced between the two women, his sharp instincts clearly picking up on the tension. "Melissa, make sure Amanda has everything she needs for the upcoming weekend conference. I want it to run as smoothly as last night's event." "Of course," Melissa said, though her tone betrayed her irritation. "I'll ensure she's fully prepared." As Melissa walked away, Amanda exhaled, feeling the weight of the subtle power struggle. Later that afternoon, Amanda found herself in the break room, sipping a much-needed coffee. To her surprise, Madison appeared again, this time accompanied by Ryan Carter, James's younger brother. "Uncle Ryan wanted to meet you," Madison announced brightly. Amanda looked up, startled. Ryan was tall and charismatic, with a rugged charm that contrasted with James's polished demeanor. His smile was easy and disarming as he extended a hand. "So, you're the famous Amanda," Ryan said, his tone playful. "Madison hasn't stopped talking about you since the elevator incident." "Famous might be a stretch," Amanda replied, shaking his hand. Ryan laughed. "Don't be modest. Saving my niece is a big deal. I wanted to thank you personally." "Just doing what anyone would have done," Amanda said, though she appreciated his sincerity. Ryan leaned against the counter, his expression softening. "I know my brother. If he trusts you, that says a lot. You've clearly earned your place here." Amanda was taken aback by his words. "Thank you, that means a lot." As Ryan and Madison left, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Ryan's sudden reappearance. She had heard whispers among the staff about his past, his sudden disappearance and the rumors surrounding it, but now wasn't the time to dwell on it. For now, her focus remained on navigating her new role and the increasingly complex dynamics at the Carter Regency. The following week at the Carter Regency Hotel was as hectic as ever, with Amanda balancing her new responsibilities while navigating the undercurrents of office politics, despite the mounting pressures. She found moments of solace in her growing connection with Madison, whose frequent visits to the hotel brightened Amanda's days. But something about Ryan Carter's sudden presence lingered in her thoughts. His easygoing charm was a stark contrast to James's measured and commanding demeanor, though Amanda didn't pry. She noticed the way some staff members exchanged glances whenever Ryan walked by. There was clearly more to his story than he let on. That Friday evening, the hotel was alive with activity as it prepared for a high-profile wedding in the grand ballroom. The bride, Melissa, had spared no expense in planning a lavish ceremony. The towering floral arrangements, crystal chandeliers, and a live orchestra set the stage for what promised to be the event of the season. Amanda, as part of her duties, was overseeing the final details of the setup. She moved through the ballroom, ensuring every element was perfectly in place. Despite Melissa's earlier assurances that everything was under control, Amanda had learned to double-check. The stakes were too high to leave anything to chance. As guests began to arrive, Amanda stood discreetly near the back of the room, ready to address any last-minute issues. She watched as Melissa made her grand entrance, draped in a designer gown that sparkled under the lights. The groom, however, was nowhere to be seen. The whispers started almost immediately. "Where's the groom?" one guest murmured. "Is he late?" another speculated. Amanda's stomach twisted with unease. She turned to the event coordinator. "Have you seen the groom?" The coordinator shook her head. "Not since this morning. He's supposed to be in the suite with his groomsmen." Determined to keep the situation under control, Amanda slipped out of the ballroom and headed toward the private suites. As she turned a corner, she nearly collided with Ryan, who looked more serious than she had ever seen him. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" Amanda asked, startled. "Looking for answers," he said, his jaw clenched. Before Amanda could ask what he meant, he strode past her toward the ballroom. Unable to shake her curiosity, She followed at a distance. When Ryan entered the ballroom, the whispers grew louder. All eyes turned to him as he walked straight to Melissa, who stood at the altar with a strained smile. "What are you doing here?" Melissa hissed, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. "I could ask you the same thing," Ryan shot back, his voice carrying across the room. "You didn't think I'd show up? Did you?" The room fell into stunned silence. Amanda watched from the back, her pulse quickening as the tension in the air became almost unbearable. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ryan began, addressing the crowd. "I apologize for the interruption, but I think it's time for some honesty." Melissa's face paled, her composure slipping. "Ryan, don't what? Tell the truth." Ryan's tone was sharp. "Everyone here deserves to know who you really are." The crowd leaned in, their curiosity palpable. James, who had been seated with Madison near the front, rose to his feet. His expression was a mix of confusion and anger. "Ryan," James said, his voice low but commanding. "What's going on?" Ryan turned to face his brother, his gaze unwavering. "She's the reason I disappeared." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Amanda felt her heart pound as she tried to process Ryan's words. "What are you talking about?" James demanded. Ryan took a deep breath, his voice steady but filled with bitterness. "Years ago, Melissa and I were involved. She convinced me to take out loans I couldn't repay when everything came crashing down. She disappeared, leaving me to deal with the fallout. I had no choice but to leave Chicago to escape the mess she created." Melissa's face twisted in anger. "You're lying." "Am I?" Ryan countered, pulling a folder from his jacket. He held it up for everyone to see. "Because I have the receipts, bank statements, emails, everything." James stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Melissa, is this true?" Melissa stammered, her confident facade crumbling. I was trying to help him. He was irresponsible with his money." Ryan laughed bitterly. "Help me. You drained my accounts and left me to fend for myself." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Melissa's carefully constructed image was unraveling before everyone's eyes. Amanda's mind raced as she observed the scene. She noticed another detail: the extravagant wedding arrangements, the vendors Melissa had insisted on, the discrepancies in the hotel's budget reports. It all made sense now. Unable to stay silent, Amanda stepped forward. "Mr. Carter," she said, addressing James, "I need to speak with you privately. It's about Melissa and the hotel's finances." James turned to her, his expression grim. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." Amanda hesitated but nodded. "I've been reviewing the hotel's budgets as part of my new role. There are inconsistencies, large amounts missing from our accounts. I believe Melissa has been using company funds to pay for this wedding." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, and Melissa's face turned bright red. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "She's lying. I have the reports to prove it," Amanda said calmly. James's gaze hardened as he looked at Melissa. "Is this true?" Melissa faltered, her defiance crumbling under the weight of the accusations. The room was silent except for the soft rustling of the crowd. James turned to Amanda, his expression a mixture of disappointment and resolve. "Amanda, gather the evidence. I want a full report on my desk by tomorrow morning." "Yes, sir," Amanda replied, her voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As Melissa stormed out of the room, the crowd began to disperse, the whispers of scandal following in her wake. Ryan stood silently, his expression unreadable. James approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We'll talk later," James said, his voice low. Ryan nodded, and James turned to Amanda. "Thank you, Amanda. You handled this well." Amanda exhaled, the weight of the evening finally hitting her. She had stepped into a storm she hadn't seen coming, but she had no intention of backing down. The next morning, Amanda sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by a pile of printouts and notes. The early sunlight filtered through the window, but she barely noticed after the chaos of the previous evening. She had gone straight home and stayed up late, reviewing the hotel's financial reports. Each discrepancy she found added to the weight in her chest. Melissa's misuse of funds was more extensive than she had initially thought. Amanda sipped her coffee, trying to shake the fatigue. The thought of presenting this information to James Carter was daunting, but she knew it was necessary. By the time she arrived at the Carter Regency, The tension in the air was palpable. Whispers followed her as she walked through the lobby, a chorus of rumors about the disastrous wedding and Melissa's abrupt exit. "Good morning, Amanda." Brian, one of the housekeepers, greeted her. "Big day, huh? You have no idea," Amanda replied with a faint smile. She headed straight to James's office, clutching the folder of evidence she had compiled. His assistant ushered her in, and Amanda found James already at his desk, his expression stern. Ryan was seated across from him, leaning back in his chair with an air of practiced nonchalance. "Amanda," James said, gesturing for her to sit. "Let's hear it." Amanda placed the folder on his desk, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I've reviewed the financial records thoroughly. Melissa diverted significant amounts of hotel funds to pay for her wedding and personal expenses. These are the reports, along with invoices and receipts that match the discrepancies." James flipped through the folder, his frown deepening with each page. Ryan leaned forward, glancing at the documents over his brother's shoulder. "This is bad," Ryan said, breaking the silence. "She was bleeding the hotel dry." James closed the folder and looked at Amanda. "How long has this been going on?" "From what I can tell, at least 6 months," Amanda replied. "But some of the transactions date back even further. It's possible she's been misusing funds for years." James exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "This is a betrayal on every level. She was someone I trusted." Ryan placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "Melissa's a master manipulator, James. You're not the first person she's fooled, and unfortunately, you won't be the last." James nodded grimly before turning back to Amanda. "Thank you for bringing this to light. I'll take it from here. The legal team will handle the next steps." Amanda hesitated, feeling a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry this happened under your watch, Mr. Carter. I know how much this hotel means to you." James offered a faint smile. "It's not your fault, Amanda. If anything, you've helped prevent further damage. You've done more than your share." As she left the office, Amanda felt a mixture of relief and lingering unease. Melissa might have been exposed, but Amanda knew her departure wouldn't erase the scars she'd left behind. Later that day, Amanda was overseeing operations in the lobby when she spotted Melissa by the elevator, dressed in casual clothes. She carried a large bag, her head held high despite the glances from passing staff. Amanda approached cautiously. "Melissa," she said, her tone neutral. Melissa turned, her expression unreadable. "I'm just here to collect the last of my things." "I see," Amanda replied, choosing her words carefully. "I'm sorry things ended this way." Melissa let out a bitter laugh. "Are you? You got exactly what you wanted. Didn't you? A promotion and now the moral high ground. That's not what this was about," Amanda said firmly. "The hotel needed someone honest. You were stealing from the company, Melissa. You know that." Melissa's eyes flashed with anger. "Do you think you're better than me, Amanda? You're just a glorified janitor who got lucky." Amanda's jaw tightened, but she refused to take the bait. "Good luck, Melissa. I hope you find a fresh start somewhere." Melissa stared at her for a long moment before turning and stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed, Amanda exhaled, the encounter leaving her with a strange mix of emotions. That evening, Amanda found herself in the break room, sipping tea as she tried to unwind from the day. To her surprise, Ryan walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Long day?" he asked, setting one of the cups in front of her. "You could say that," Amanda replied, grateful for the gesture. Ryan pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "I wanted to thank you again for everything you've done." Exposing Melissa took guts. A lot of people wouldn't have done it. Amanda shrugged. "It wasn't just about guts. It was the right thing to do." Ryan studied her, a hint of admiration in his gaze. "You remind me of James, you know. That same stubborn sense of integrity." Amanda smiled faintly. "That's a compliment, right?" Ryan chuckled. "Absolutely." For a moment, the two sat in comfortable silence. Amanda found herself relaxing in his presence, her guard lowering slightly. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "With the hotel? With everything?" Ryan leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "James will handle the fallout. He's good at keeping things together, even when they're falling apart." "And you," Amanda pressed. Ryan hesitated, his playful demeanor giving way to something more serious. "I came back because I wanted to make things right. With James, with myself. Melissa was part of that." But now, I don't know. Maybe it's time I figure out what's next. Amanda nodded, understanding the weight of his words. Whatever you decide, I hope it brings you peace. Ryan smiled softly. Same to you, Amanda. As he left the room, Amanda couldn't help but wonder if their paths were more intertwined than she had realized. The days following Melissa's departure were strangely quiet, but the tension in the air remained. Amanda noticed the staff moving more cautiously, their conversations hushed. It wasn't just the fallout from Melissa's actions, it was the uncertainty of what might happen next. The scandal had rocked the Carter Regency, and everyone was bracing for more changes. Amanda, however, refused to let the unease distract her. She poured herself into her work, determined to prove that James hadn't made a mistake in trusting her. As assistant manager, she now had a heavier workload, but the challenge only fueled her determination. One morning, Amanda arrived early to prepare for a meeting with James and the department heads. She had spent the night reviewing proposals for a new customer loyalty program, hoping to present ideas that would help restore the hotel's reputation after the recent scandal. The meeting was held in one of the smaller conference rooms, its sleek design a reflection of the hotel's modern elegance. James sat at the head of the table, his usual composed demeanor tinged with a subtle edge of weariness. Ryan was there too, leaning back in his chair with an air of casual confidence, though his sharp eyes suggested he was paying closer attention than he let on. "Let's get started," James said, his voice cutting through the room. He nodded at Amanda. "Amanda, you're up." Taking a deep breath, Amanda stood and handed out copies of her proposal. "I've been analyzing our current customer engagement strategies and comparing them to industry trends," she began. "What I've noticed is that we lack a strong incentive for repeat guests. My proposal outlines a loyalty program designed to not only retain existing customers, but also attract new ones." As she spoke, Amanda felt her confidence growing. The room was quiet, the department heads listening intently. Even Ryan seemed impressed, nodding occasionally as she explained the finer details. When she finished, James smiled. "Excellent work, Amanda. This is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need." "Agreed," Ryan chimed in. "I like the idea of focusing on personalized rewards. It makes the guests feel valued." The praise buoyed Amanda's spirits. But the moment was short-lived. One of the senior managers, Mr. Whitaker, cleared his throat. "This is a solid plan, but implementing it will require additional budget allocation. Given the recent financial setbacks, is this the right time to take on new expenses?" Amanda met his gaze steadily. "I understand your concern, Mr. Whitaker, but the long-term benefits outweigh the initial costs. Guests who feel valued are more likely to return and recommend our hotel to others. It's an investment in our future." Whitaker nodded, but Amanda could tell he wasn't entirely convinced. Still, she held her ground, determined to stand by her ideas. "Let's move forward with it," James said, ending the discussion. "Amanda, work with finance to finalize the details." "Will do," Amanda replied, her heart racing with a mix of relief and pride. Later that afternoon, Amanda was back in her office, reviewing schedules when Ryan appeared in the doorway, his usual grin in place. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Sure," Amanda said, gesturing for him to sit. Ryan dropped into the chair opposite her desk, his relaxed posture contrasting with the intensity of his gaze. "You were great in the meeting this morning. James might not say it outright, but he's impressed." Amanda smiled, though her modesty kept her from fully accepting the compliment. "Thanks. I just want to do what's best for the hotel." "That's exactly why he trusts you," Ryan said. Then his tone shifted, becoming more serious. "But you know, not everyone in that room was rooting for you." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "You mean Whitaker?" Ryan nodded. "He's old school, doesn't like change, especially when it's coming from someone who wasn't part of the system. Watch your back with him. He's not Melissa, but he's not above throwing up roadblocks if it suits him." Amanda absorbed his words, grateful for the insight. "Thanks for the warning. I'll keep that in mind." Ryan stood, his grin returning. "Good, because I'm betting on you, Amanda." As he left, Amanda couldn't help but feel a mix of gratitude and curiosity. Ryan's support felt genuine, but she wondered what his own role in the hotel's future would be. That evening, as Amanda prepared to leave, she decided to check on the housekeeping staff. It had been a while since she'd visited the department where her journey at the hotel had started. Stepping into the bustling laundry room, she was met with familiar faces and warm greetings. "Amanda," Brian called out, his grin wide. "Look at you, all corporate now." "Not quite," Amanda replied with a laugh. "How's everything going down here?" "Same as always," Brian said, though his tone carried a hint of frustration. "We're a little short-staffed this week, but we're managing." Amanda frowned. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "I can arrange for temporary help if you need it," Brian shrugged. "Didn't want to bother you. You've got bigger things to worry about." "Brian," Amanda said firmly, "if something's wrong, I need to know. You're part of the team, and your work is just as important as anyone else's." Brian smiled, his respect for Amanda evident. "Thanks, Amanda. I'll keep that in mind." As she left the department, Amanda felt a renewed sense of purpose. No matter how high she climbed, she wouldn't forget where she had started, or the people who had supported her along the way. Later that night, Amanda returned to her apartment and collapsed onto her couch. Exhausted but content, her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Good job today. Don't let Whitaker get to you." Amanda smiled, her fingers hovering over the screen before replying. "Thanks, I won't." As she set the phone down, a thought crossed her mind. For all the challenges she faced, she was beginning to feel like she belonged. And that, more than anything, gave her hope for the future. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the Carter Regency with a renewed sense of purpose. Her success in the meeting and the camaraderie with the staff had bolstered her confidence. However, she knew there was still unfinished business. Melissa may have been removed from her position, but the damage she caused lingered, both in the hotel's reputation and in the staff's morale. Amanda's day began with a surprise meeting request from James. She made her way to his office, finding him already deep in conversation with Ryan. The brothers looked up as she entered, their expressions serious. "Good morning, Amanda," James said, gesturing for her to sit. "We've received some new information about Melissa." Amanda's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of information?" Ryan leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. "We've been digging into her background, specifically her connections to the vendors she hired for the wedding. Turns out several of them are linked to companies she's a shareholder in." Amanda's eyes widened. So she wasn't just misusing hotel funds. She was funneling money into her own businesses. "Exactly," James confirmed, his jaw tightening. "It's a clear conflict of interest, and it explains the inflated invoices she submitted. We've already passed the evidence to our legal team, but I wanted to let you know because you'll likely be called upon to provide testimony about the financial discrepancies you uncovered." Amanda nodded, her resolve hardening. "Whatever you need, I'll do it." "Good," James said, his expression softening slightly. "This won't be easy, Amanda, but it's necessary. Melissa's actions were a betrayal to everyone here, and we need to make sure she's held accountable." As Amanda left the office, her mind raced with the implications of what she had just learned. She had always suspected Melissa's behavior was more calculated than it appeared, but the extent of her deception was staggering. That evening, Amanda returned to her office to organize her notes for the legal team. She was focused on her work, when a soft knock at the door startled her. Looking up, she saw Ryan leaning casually against the frame. "You look busy," he said, stepping inside. "Just making sure everything is in order for the legal team," Amanda replied. Ryan sat across from her, his usual grin replaced by a more thoughtful expression. "You know, most people in your position would be overwhelmed by now, but you just keep pushing forward," Amanda chuckled. "Trust me, I have my moments, but this isn't just about me. It's about doing what's right. For the hotel, for the staff. They deserve better." Ryan nodded, his respect for her evident. "James was right to trust you. You're exactly what this place needed." Amanda felt a warmth in her chest at his words. "Thanks, Ryan. That means a lot." For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the day momentarily lifting. The next day, Amanda found herself in the ballroom, overseeing preparations for a charity auction. The event had been planned before the wedding debacle, and there was pressure to ensure it ran smoothly. Amanda worked closely with the staff, double-checking every detail to avoid any last-minute surprises. As the event began, Amanda circulated the room, greeting guests and addressing minor issues. She was in the middle of resolving a seating mix-up when she spotted a familiar figure at the entrance. Melissa, dressed impeccably as always, she moved through the room with practiced ease, her presence causing a ripple of murmurs among the staff. Amanda felt a surge of anger but kept her composure. What is she doing here? Before Amanda could act, James appeared at her side. His expression was calm, but his voice carried an edge. I've already asked security to escort her out. She's not welcome here. Amanda nodded, watching as two security guards approached Melissa. To her surprise, Melissa didn't resist. Instead, she smirked, her gaze sweeping the room as if she had nothing to lose, as the guards led her out. Melissa caught Amanda's eye and mouthed, "This isn't over." Amanda felt a chill but pushed it aside. Melissa's time at the Carter Regency was over, and no amount of posturing would change that. After the event, Amanda stayed late to help the staff clean up, as she stacked chairs and collected stray programs. She couldn't shake the feeling that Melissa's departure hadn't been the end of the story. Later, in her office, Amanda found another note waiting for her on her desk. This one was handwritten, the script elegant but unmistakably cold. "You've made an enemy, Amanda. Watch your back." Amanda's hands trembled as she read the words. Whoever had written it was determined to intimidate her, but she refused to let fear control her. She took a deep breath and placed the note in her drawer, her mind racing with plans to ensure the hotel's safety, and her own. As she left the office, the city lights casting long shadows on the pavement outside, Amanda felt a surge of determination. Melissa might have made herself an enemy, but Amanda wasn't the type to back down. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the Carter Regency with a renewed determination. The note she had received the previous night weighed on her mind, but she refused to let fear cloud her focus. Instead, she channeled her energy into ensuring the hotel continued to run smoothly. Despite the challenges, as the day progressed, Amanda worked tirelessly to prepare for an important executive meeting. James had invited several key investors to discuss the future of the hotel, hoping to rebuild confidence after the fallout from Melissa's actions. Amanda knew the stakes were high, and that her role in the meeting would be critical. The meeting was scheduled for the late afternoon, and Amanda spent hours double-checking every detail, from the presentation materials to the refreshments. By the time the investors began arriving, she felt as ready as she could be. In the sleek boardroom, James opened the meeting with his usual commanding presence. Amanda sat near the end of the table, ready to present her findings on the hotel's recent improvements and plans for growth. Ryan was also present, his relaxed demeanor a sharp contrast to the tension in the room. "Before we dive into the agenda," James began, his tone steady, "I want to address the events of the past few weeks. As you're all aware, we've uncovered significant financial discrepancies tied to a former member of our team. While this has been a setback, I want to assure you that we've taken decisive action to rectify the situation." Amanda listened intently as James continued, outlining the steps the hotel had taken to recover from the financial blow. When it was her turn to speak, she stood confidently, presenting her proposal for a loyalty program aimed at increasing guest retention and enhancing the hotel's reputation. Her presentation was met with nods of approval from most of the investors. Though a few asked pointed questions about the costs involved, Amanda answered each one with poise, drawing on her research to back up her points. "Impressive work, Ms. Reyes," one of the investors said. "Your ideas show a lot of promise." Amanda smiled, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "Thank you. I'm confident this program will position the Carter Regency as a leader in guest experience." As the meeting continued, Amanda noticed a commotion near the door. A staff member whispered something to James, who frowned and excused himself from the room. Ryan followed, his expression darkening as he left. Amanda tried to stay focused on the discussion, but her curiosity got the better of her. She quickly wrapped up her part of the presentation and stepped out into the hallway, where she found James and Ryan in a heated conversation with security. "What's going on?" Amanda asked, approaching cautiously. "It's Melissa," Ryan said, his voice tight with anger. "She's downstairs, causing a scene." Amanda's stomach clenched. "What does she want?" "She's claiming she has information that will expose the truth," James said, his tone laced with frustration. "Security is handling it, but I don't want her anywhere near this hotel." Amanda hesitated. "Maybe we should hear her out." James and Ryan both turned to her, surprised. "She's desperate," Amanda continued. "If we let her say her piece, we can put this to rest once and for all." James considered her words for a moment before nodding. Fine, but we're doing this on my terms. Security will stay close. In a small, private office near the lobby, Melissa sat across from James, Ryan, and Amanda. Her usually pristine appearance was slightly disheveled, and her eyes burned with defiance. "Well," James said, his tone cold, "what is it you think we need to hear?" Melissa leaned back in her chair, her smirk returning. "You think you've won, don't you? Exposing me, ruining my reputation, but you don't know the full story." Amanda watched her carefully, noting the desperation behind Melissa's bravado. "I wasn't the only one misusing funds," Melissa continued, her gaze flicking to Ryan. "Your dear brother here had his hands dirty too." Ryan's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. "You're lying." "Am I?" Melissa sneered. "Who introduced me to those vendors? Who signed off on some of those invoices? You were just as involved, Ryan. Maybe not as much as me, but enough." James looked at Ryan, his expression unreadable. "Is this true?" Ryan held his brother's gaze. "I made mistakes, James. I trusted the wrong people, but I didn't steal from the hotel." Melissa laughed bitterly. "Believe what you want, but if you dig deep enough, you'll find his fingerprints all over this mess." Amanda stepped in, her voice calm but firm. "Even if Ryan made mistakes, the evidence against you is clear. Melissa, you can't deflect blame onto others to save yourself." Melissa's smirk faltered, but she quickly recovered. "You think you're so righteous, don't you, Amanda? You're just a pawn in James's game. Do you really think you'll last in this world?" Amanda met her gaze evenly. "I think integrity always lasts. That's why you're sitting here and I'm not." The room fell silent as Melissa's words hung in the air. Finally, James stood, his expression resolute. "This conversation is over," he said. "Melissa, you'll be hearing from our legal team, and Ryan, we'll talk later." Melissa was escorted out by security, her bravado finally cracking as the weight of her situation set in. Ryan stayed behind, his shoulders tense. "James, Ryan began, but James raised a hand. "We'll sort this out," James said. "Right now, let's focus on moving forward." Ryan nodded, his gratitude evident. Amanda stayed quiet, sensing the brothers needed space to resolve their own issues. That evening, as Amanda walked home, she reflected on everything that had happened. The confrontation with Melissa had been intense, but it felt like a turning point. The truth was out, and the Carter Regency could finally begin to heal. As she reached her apartment, her phone buzzed with a message from James. "You handled today with grace and courage. Thank you." Amanda smiled, the words reinforcing her belief that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The week after Melissa's final departure brought a sense of calm to the Carter Regency Hotel. While the scandal had left its mark, the staff seemed more unified, their focus shifting toward rebuilding the hotel's reputation. Amanda, now fully immersed in her role as assistant manager, felt the weight of responsibility, but also the satisfaction of making a real difference. It was a crisp Saturday morning when Amanda arrived at the hotel earlier than usual. The executive team had planned a staff appreciation brunch, a gesture James initiated to boost morale and acknowledge the team's hard work through turbulent times. Amanda had played a key role in organizing the event, ensuring every detail reflected the hotel's commitment to excellence. As the staff gathered in the grand ballroom, the atmosphere was lively. Tables were adorned with fresh flowers, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries filled the air. Amanda moved through the crowd, chatting with colleagues and ensuring everyone felt included. "Looks like a success," Ryan said, appearing at her side with a cup of coffee in hand. Amanda smiled. "Let's hope it stays that way. No surprise disasters today, please." Ryan chuckled. "I think we've had our fill of those for a while." As the brunch continued, James stepped onto a small stage at the front of the room. The crowd quieted as he addressed them, his voice carrying the steady authority that had earned him respect. "I want to thank each and every one of you for your dedication and resilience," James began. "The past few weeks have tested us, but together, we've come through stronger. This hotel thrives because of its people, and I'm proud to call all of you my team." Applause filled the room, and James waited for it to subside before continuing. "There's one person I'd like to recognize in particular, someone who has stepped up in ways I never expected, and has become an invaluable part of this hotel's future." Amanda's heart skipped a beat, as James's eyes met hers. He gestured for her to join him on the stage, and the room erupted in applause. Feeling both nervous and honored, Amanda made her way to the front. James extended his hand, and she shook it, her cheeks flushing under the attention. Amanda Reyes has shown us what integrity, hard work, and courage look like, James said, his voice steady. She's proven that leadership isn't about titles or experience, it's about character. And it's because of her character that I'm proud to announce Amanda's promotion to general manager of the Carter Regency Hotel. The room fell silent for a moment before erupting into cheers and applause. Amanda's breath caught as the words sank in. General manager. She hadn't seen this coming. James leaned in slightly, his voice low enough for only her to hear. You've earned this, Amanda. Don't doubt it for a second. Amanda nodded, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. She turned to face the crowd, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke. Thank you, everyone. This means more to me than I can put into words. I promise to do everything I can to make this hotel the best it can be. For all of us. The applause swelled again, and as Amanda stepped off the stage, she was greeted by warm congratulations from her colleagues. Even Ryan, who rarely showed overt emotion, gave her an approving nod. Later that evening, Amanda found herself alone in her office, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The small room that had once felt like a daunting step up, now felt like home. She thought back to the day she had saved Madison, the day everything had changed. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was James, his expression softer than usual. Mind if I join you for a minute? He asked. Of course, Amanda said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. James sat down, studying her for a moment before speaking. You've come a long way, Amanda. I knew you had potential, but you've exceeded every expectation. Thank you, Amanda said, her voice humble. But I couldn't have done it without your support. James smiled. It's not just my support. You've earned the respect of everyone here, from the staff to the investors. That's something no one can give you. It's something you've built yourself. Amanda nodded, her chest swelling with pride. It's still surreal. A few months ago, I was just a housekeeper trying to make ends meet. And now, you're leading one of the most prestigious hotels in Chicago, James said. It's a testament to who you are. Don't ever forget that. As James stood to leave, Amanda stopped him. James, thank you for believing in me. It's made all the difference. He paused, his smile warm. It's not hard to believe in someone who proves themselves every day. Keep doing what you're doing, Amanda. That night, as Amanda walked home, the city lights twinkling around her, she felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known. She had faced challenges she couldn't have imagined, but she had come out stronger. Her journey wasn't over. There were still challenges to face and goals to achieve, but for the first time in a long time, Amanda felt truly confident in her path. She had found her place, not just in the Carter Regency, but in her own story, and this was only the beginning.